What's up guys, how you all doing? Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is the jacket, and I'm going to do this in a sort of waxy purple, kind of like latex or a shiny leather. To begin, we're going to mix a bit of that violet ink into some Games Workshop Screamer Pink, and a little bit of black as well, just to darken it down a bit. We want this quite thin, so we'll add some water in there as well, just to make it essentially a heavy glaze consistency. Now we're going to push that over the surface here, anywhere the light would be catching, so here along the centre part. And then at the side here as well. Now while this is still wet, what I'll do is take a second clean, slightly damp brush and I'll place it just to the edge of the paint, and then I'm going to sweep it back and forth like this, drawing it away from the paint, which is going to blur out the edge there so it leaves a nice transition. And I'll do the same sort of thing on the other side, so first placing the paint on top of that fold and then quickly grabbing my second brush and sweeping it back and forth, smoothly moving it away from the edge of the paint. So what's happening there is the paint mixes with the water on the brush, and as you draw the brush away from the paint, you gradually have less paint on the brush until eventually you're only left with water, which gives you this nice transition over the surface. Alright, so I'll continue that on the other side, again placing the paint where I want it and then grabbing my second brush and using that to draw the paint out, creating that nice blend effect. And we'll do the same thing here on this little fold. So I'm just placing the paint on the fold where I want it and then using a second brush to draw out the edge. On the other side, I'll do a couple more applications just to push that colour a bit more. And you can see it's just the same process of placing the colour, then using the second brush to push the edges away to the sides so that you're left with a more subtle transition. I do mess up a bit here. I was a bit tentative with the second brush, which has left a slight squiggle on the surface, but I'll show you a way that you can fix that later on. For now, we'll continue with another pass on this lower edge of the cloak. Alright, so now that we've done that, I'll make a thin glaze with some black this time, just by adding some water into the paint, and I'll use that to glaze over anywhere there's a little blemish in the blend, which is usually going to be in the shadow areas anyway, so this tends to work out quite well. You're really killing two birds with one stone by fixing any little mistakes and also deepening the shadow areas at the same time. And we'll do the same sort of thing on the other side. Okay, so we can move on to the highlights now. So for that we're going to make a glaze with some Games Workshop Screamer Pink. And we're just going to apply this in much the same way as we did the base colour. just by sweeping the glaze over the surface towards where we want to highlight, and then using a second clean brush to feather out the edges. And I'll do his little collar there as well, just highlighting the sides and near the centre. Alright, so I think you get the general idea now. I'm just going to push the colour a little bit more. I'm not going to apply the pink until it's opaque because I want the cloak to stay quite dark overall. So what I'm going to do is just do a few quick passes with the pink just to give me a bit of a colour change before I go in with more extreme highlights. On the folds, I'm trying to pull the paint into the middle of the back, just letting my brush follow the shape of the fabric. And I'll do a few more glazes, then we'll move on to the next round of highlights. Alright, for our next highlight we'll simply mix some white into the screamer pink. And I'll use that to paint a line here just at the apex point of the fold on the cloth, near that bottom edge. And then I'll add a little edge highlight near that line along the edge of the cloak. And then again on the side here, and also on the lower edge of the cloak. I'll do the folds as well, pulling the paint up to the centre point of the back. Alrighty, so next we're going to add a bit more white in there, just so our paint is really quite bright. And we will intensify just where those two lines meet in the middle there. And also on the corners of the cloak. And then the same thing on those little folds on the back there. Alright, so I think that'll do. We're going to do his hair in pretty much the same way as we did for the cloak. So with that in mind, we'll start off with that pink violet ink mix, and we'll just place it roughly halfway along the mohawk. Then with a clean, slightly damp brush, we're going to draw out the edge of the paint to fade it out. Alright, and then we're going to do the same thing on the top, placing the colour, then drawing it away with another brush to blend it out. And then exactly the same thing again on the other side. On this little bit of hair at the back, I'm pulling the paint along the length of the hairs, letting it gather towards the end of the hair. The next step is to take some of our screamer pink, and then just like we did in the first step, we'll place the colour near the front of the mohawk, then use a second brush to feather out the edge, drawing the paint away from the front of the hair, blending out that hard edge. And the same thing again on the top, and then on the other side. On the hair at the back, we'll again draw the paint along the length of the hair. This time, we're trying to be more careful just to hit the individual strands of hair, leaving those recesses in shadow. There's not really any texture on the top of the mohawk, so what we're going to do is put some in by painting lots of little lines across the width. Notice the paint here is quite transparent so that I can vary the strength of the colour by simply going back and applying more lines where I want the highlight to be more noticeable. So just there on the top of the mohawk, I want the colour to be quite strong. Then we're going to add a little white to the pink and we'll just add in some more highlights. Add quite a bit more white this time to make the colour nice and bright, and we're going to just run the side of the brush along the top edge of the hair. Basically doing an edge highlight, but we're only trying to hit the raised parts of the hair, so it's a bit like a dry brush except with a wet brush. Is that a thing? Wet brushing? Well, I guess it is now if it wasn't already. And then we'll do the same on the other side. Then put a few more texture lines on the top there just for good measure. Mix a bit more white into your pink and use that to add a few little highlights here and there right on the top of the hairline. To finish off that little tuft of hair at the back there, I'll just go back and gradually build up the screamer pink by adding more white each time. So my approach here is to highlight around the middle of the hair and towards the tips. For your last highlights on the hair, you want them to be quite sharp and small. Okay, so for the final step, we're going to take some pure white and I'm just going to put a few fairly random dots around the darker area of the mohawk, making the dots more spread out as I move closer to the front of the mohawk. It gives you this nice little cool effect. I think it looks pretty smart, but you can skip this step if it's not to your taste. I'll just show that again on the other side here. So I'm doing this with the side of the brush, just lightly tapping it against the edge of the hairs. It's up to you where to put the dots, just try and keep them a bit random so that you don't build up an obvious pattern. so I think I'll be shutting up now. Thank you very much for your support. Stay tuned for more videos coming soon. Thanks again. Bye for now.